If you're new here, welcome! This is a series where we create a video game using Python and Pygame. So first, let's navigate to PyCharm so we can open up our project. Our project is called Dino No Wi-Fi Game. This is where we left off last time. We had these two lines of code. In the lower half of my screen, you see I have Terminal open. If this is not open for you, click the button at the bottom called Terminal to open it. So in my Dino No Wi-Fi Game folder, I have a file called main.py. All you have to do is click it so you can open it up. So now if we navigate down to our terminal, we can actually print our working directory, which is the pwd command, and we can see where we currently are. I actually want to go into my Dino No Wi-Fi Game folder, so I do the ls command to list out everything that's currently in my working directory. Now what I'm going to do is change directories, or cd, into the Dino No Wi-Fi Game. Now that I'm here, I can do the print working directory command, pwd, to see where I'm at. And as you can see, I'm now where I want to be. I'm in the Dino No Wi-Fi Game folder. And as you can also see, I see the main.py file. Now what I can do is actually run the command python3 main.py, and it actually runs my code. So everything that's in the main.py file, it runs it, and if you see that on your screen, that means everything is working fine. Okay, so if that did not work for you, no worries. You might need to check what version of Pygame you're using. So for example, I needed to use the 2.0.0 version. So what you do is you go to specify version, you click the drop down, and you might need to use a different version. So I'm using a newer version of Mac, so I had to change that Pygame version. But yeah, if you're having troubles, definitely check that out. So the primary way that we are going to run our code is by clicking that green play button. And you're going to see those two lines of code are still printed out. So if you do not see that, what you're going to do is you might need to edit your configurations. So click that button, edit configurations, and go over to module name. And as you can see, I actually have main over there because that's the file I want to run when I click that play button. So what you need to do is do search by name, enter symbol name, and then also type the name of your file. And your name of the file might be main as well. And then after you do that, make sure everything else looks similar, and then you are good to go. So let's talk about what these two lines of code is doing. So first we have import Pygame, and that allows us to gain access to Pygame in our code. And then we have pygame.init. So what this does is it initializes all of the Pygame modules. So I don't want these tutorials to just be me just coding everything straight, just because that's never really how coding works. So I want to show you how I knew what pygame.init does. So I went to the official pygame.org documentation, and as you can see right there, pygame.init initializes all of the imported Pygame modules. Learning how to read documentation is such an important skill, and these docs are pretty good as well. You can also look at comments so you can see what other people are saying, and maybe that might help you when you're using a particular function. So something that I thought was pretty cool was that init actually returns a tuple, and inside that tuple you can see the number of modules that passed, that actually got initiated, and the number that failed. So what I did was I decided to actually print out that value so we can see what it is. And when we go to run our code, we can see the tuple that got printed out was 60. So that's good. So that means they all passed, 6 modules got initiated, and none of them failed. So let's delete that print statement and we can get into the meat of this video. What we are going to do now is create the game window. We're going to create a variable called screen, and we use the pygame.display.setMode function to create our game display, or that game window. Inside setMode, we pass in a tuple. W3 Schools has a great article on tuples where the first number is the width and the second number is the height. For our game, our width and height will be 500. Now when you run the code, a game window is quickly created, but then it disappears. IDK if you can see it, but why this is happening, or why we do not see our game window, is because we need to create our game loop. Our game loop will run forever, or until the user closes the window, or some type of event happens Maybe our player runs into a cactus and then our game stops there. So Invent with Python has an A+++++ book on Pygame, and I love the image they use to show what a game loop does. Our game loop will draw the screen. What does our screen or game currently look like? It will handle events. Did our user move, jump, or maybe did the person playing the game quit the game? And then it will also update our game state. What's our player's health? Where's our player's position? Different things like that. Let's start with filling our 500 by 500 screen with a color. So the name of the variable is called screen, and we will use the .fill method to fill or surface that game window with a solid color. The color I want to fill the screen with is white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in a tuple that has the values 255, 255, 255. The first number represents how much red you want, the second value represents how much green you want, and the last value is how much blue you want. So I want to show you this RGB color codes chart, and as you can see, like as I pick different colors, there's a different RGB value. So 255, 255, 255 is white, 000 is black. Was giving y'all some time to guess, but yeah. So as you can see, you can pick different colors. It's a different RGB value, and that's how I knew what color white would be. Let's leave a comment for where our event loop will go, and we'll come back to this part in just a second. At the end of each iteration, so the last line of code that goes in our while loop, which is our game loop, we need to update the screen. Pygame.display.update updates the entire surface area. I encourage everyone to see what would happen if you didn't add this line of code. Now let's start building the event loop. When an event happens, like for example the user presses the space bar, the arrow key, or closes the game window, those are all considered events. We are continuously looking out for events because we need to capture when the user does something that's related to our game. So if the type of event is pygame.quit, so let's say they're trying to close the game window, we set our game running variable to be false. This will cause us to exit out of our game loop. Okay y'all, so let's do a quick recap of what we just did. So we imported Pygame. Importing Pygame lets us use that in our code. So one of the first lines of code we wrote was pygame.init so that we can initialize all our Pygame modules. We then created the game window. We wanted a width of 500 and a height of 500. And then we have our game loop. This is where the magic happens. So in our game loop, what we did was we filled the entire screen with the color white. We also then created an event loop where we are waiting for the event type to be pygame.quit, and that's when game running will be false. And then later we update our display. And as you can see, it does exactly what we expect. This is our game window. As you can see, it's 500 by 500. And when you exit out, it also closes. So if you have gotten to this part of the tutorial, I appreciate you, and I hope you're enjoying this series. So the last thing we're going to do is change the name of our window. So I hope that you could briefly see it, but the name of the window is called pygame.window, but that's not really a lot of fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that. So what we're going to write is pygame.display.setCaption is the name of the function that we're going to use. And then it takes in a string, and in that string you can put in whatever name you want. I'm going to call this our Dino No Wi-Fi game. So let me just stop what's currently running, and then we can press the play button. And as you can see, the name of our game has changed. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you like it, and I'll see you in the next one.